We'll start with you, Jordan.
Hey, Les, how you doing, man?
I am good. How about you, Jordan?
Doing well. You guys have certainly given us 10 crazy days here last 2 weeks or so.
Why are they crazy?
Hey, Les, wondering what it was like sort of being quietly in the running for Odell last few days, and then seeing the recruiting effort from the players, sort of that player-driven push at the very end to help convince him, and what he brings to your offense.
Let's go. A lot of layers to the question. I think it's. I think I would start by answering right. I think when someone becomes a free agent this time of year, right, versus having to let's call it clear way. I mean, or go through the waiver and they're free agent. And they actually in Odell's case, right, wanted to try to find the next chapter where he could, right, come win games. I think that's a tribute to, right, our players, Sean, his staff, right, getting us to this point where we're in that mix. I mean, we could always go back to, right, Los Angeles, all our fans and what makes this city. A lot of NFL players want to come here, stand moving the team here. So, but it is pretty neat when you have players who, let's call it, get on their platforms, recruit. They have relationships. They let guys know that, you know what, football is very important in our building, but we're gonna try to enjoy the journey and try to accomplish some cool things and neat things and special things along the journey. So I think that's kind of what you asked, and that's how it played out.
And then just the second part of the question was what his skill set brings to your offense.
It's his skill set. He's in a Sean McVay scheme, anyone who can run the entire route tree has thrived in what Sean's evolved to, and he's one of those players that's been blessed with right ability, acumen to run the route tree and run every route on that tree, and that just gives Sean, his staff, a chance to design some things and utilize that skill set.
Stu.
Hey, Les, how quickly did this come together for you all? I mean, I'm sure it was probably more of a possibility once he cleared waivers, but at what point did you kind of realize, okay, this is a real possibility and we should really try to make a push for Odell?
It's interesting, right? In the last 2 weeks, we've lost 3 receivers to the injury, and Deshaun asked, to be traded or waived. So all of a sudden there's a wave in the last 2 weeks which cut into our depth, and we are a team that runs a lot of 11 personnel. We've got 2 receivers in Rob and Coop, who's caught a lot of balls around here. We've got Van, who we play, we expect to catch a lot of balls around here, and even Benny Sco, who has earned some respect and appreciation from our players, from our staff. But we did know that with at least, how many games we got left? 8. Seems like it's about 8, and hopefully a little bit longer, right? There's a lot of load on those players, and we were getting a little bit thin from a depth standpoint. We did attempt. We joked, Stu, that it might be easier to acquire Odell Beckham Jr. than Josh Reynolds based on where we were in the calendar year, and that being, hey, Josh had to clear waivers, which he didn't. We did put a claim in for him, but Detroit got him before us, and Odell had become free and was now looking for a team, looking for that next chapter to finish out the 21 season, and we were a team that he was very interested in.
And then how rare is it in your experience as GM and even just in, other NFL personnel departments that you've been in for player-led effort to be put forth like this from the recruiting standpoint, like Jordan brought up earlier?
I do know that probably with the, let's call it the evolution of the social media platforms over the last few years, but it seems like the last few years in LA, since I've been here, players have been recruiting more and more, but I do think that's probably here's what I can say. Here's what I do know. Maybe it's more publicly because of those platforms. In the past, maybe there's text going on and they're less public. But even before these platforms, been around teams, especially in LA, where players will stop by and go, "Hey, have you thought about this player? I've got a good relationship with him. Are we interested? Would you like me to help out?" So the answer is the recruiting players recruiting other players to come to your organization has been around. It's probably more public today, but based on the social media platform.
Thank you.
Nick.
Hey, Les, it's always talked about the culture that you all have created at the Rams as far as a we, not me type of mentality. We all know what Odell Beckham can do on the field, but how much point of emphasis in the conversation was made about just that we, not me mentality, and where do you feel like he fits in to add to that culture and keep that culture going?
Sean had a conversation with Odell and kind of explained how he envisioned using Odell and let's be real about it. Coming in so many weeks halfway through a season, he's behind. He doesn't even know our playbook. So there's an element, right, of getting him here, getting him up to speed. How fast can you do that? How can we integrate him for, let's call it, at San Francisco? You have a bye week that helps in the process. Then you're at Green Bay. So all of those things were discussed, and I think the neat thing in Odell's process is winning was important to him, and we were a team that offered that chance. Again, that's all based on a past record. Our next 8 games, that they're uncertain still. So we've got to prove that we can win those. And what was neat is Odell wanted to come here and contribute, do his part, knowing it was going to be phased in, right? It's right. There's no way you can come to a team right in the middle of the year and right be 100% phased in per se.
And lastly, for me, just you all have had just seem the emphasis of just going all in. You look at the Lakers, you look at the Dodgers and what they've done. Was that ever a point of emphasis, making sure that you're looking at the window and the time frame to be like, hey, we need to go do these things to get to where our goals are right now?
Well, I think it's very important. I think we like to discuss, right, being very aware of what window you're in, right? So we're very aware we're 7-2. We wish we were 8-1 or 9-0, but we are not. But we're aware that we have a chance to still accomplish some things that we want to accomplish. But again, all we can control is today's practice and preparation for the mission that we know is at hand, and that's really week 10 at San Francisco. So, but we're aware, but every year is important. 2021 is important. 2020 was important. 2022 is important. All we control is 2021 right now, and take the business part of the NFL out. The game, the way it's constructed, right? It's a zero-sum deal, right? We're either going to win or lose at San Fran. Maybe there's a tie, and then in the end, there's going to be one champion. So again, the business of the NFL is not necessarily zero sum, right? There can be 32 teams that, right, profit, have brands, all of those things. But the entertainment aspect, the content that's generated is a zero sum deal. So when that occurs, heck, 2021 is very important. We'll get to 2022. But thanks, 2020 was important.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Gary?
Hey, Les, given what happened with Deshaun Jackson, how concerned are you about team chemistry and Odell's ability to fit into that receiver room?
Not concerned, but that's still evolving. We wouldn't have brought, or we wouldn't have, let's call it, partnered with Odell if we felt like it was going to be a concern. But that is the chemistry aspect, right? Still has to evolve, and that's number one. Coming here, beginning to learn, right, the playbook, and I don't think at the end of the day we're going to try to teach Odell the entire playbook. So Sean, his staff will figure out, right, what elements he can add to the offense. How can we sprinkle him in on a game-to-game basis and a game plan basis and go from there. But at the end of the day, right, that's still a journey. I know it's been publicized a little bit which was pretty neat to see a part of Odell's process. He did not want to come to the Rams until he chatted with our wide receiver group, until he, let's call it, not necessarily but really get their blessing, right? Hey, do you want, are y'all good with me coming to be a part of this 2021 journey? So that's been because of the platforms, right? Content business that we're in, that's been out there a little bit. But that was a neat part of, let's call it, his vetting process of wanting to make sure on the front end that he fits in. Because he's well aware, Gary, right, that, right, if we go back to what was discussed earlier, we're the Rams. The offense is a big part of who we are, but same as the defense, same as the special teams. The goal is not to, right, have a all-time leading rusher. It's to win as many games as possible.
And then how involved was Sean in this? And what was his attitude? Was he pushing hard? Was he saying, you got to get this done? Or was he kind of hands off?
A little echo in there, but I think I got it. Again, it's interesting, right, with Sean in the midst of game planning. He's game planning. He's also partnering with myself, our staff on acquiring players. But we did begin discussing, right, especially with the injury to Jacob Harris, if all of a sudden we had gotten thin at wide receiver, especially considering how much 11 personnel we do run, knowing that we have 8 more regular season games to go in the load and the amount of distance. So again, that was one of the reasons why we acquired or we put in a claim for Josh Reynolds. Again, 2 different transactions, right? Josh has been here, knows the offense, a little bit easier onboarding process with Odell. Sean did take time out of the week to have a couple of discussions with him, to chat with Odell to articulate his vision for Odell, and then actually ask, ask some questions of Odell, or if Odell had any questions for him. So he did take part in that, and was, obviously we're not going to bring in a skill player or someone like Odell unless, Sean gives a thumbs up and thinks that he can be a benefit to our 2021 journey.
Evan?
Morning, Les. Building on what Nick and Gary were asking about making sure that Odell would fit in with the offense, with the culture, was anything specifically done differently in that process based on lessons from the Deshaun Jackson situation?
Oh, you always, the lessons, that's what, if you, anytime I call it, you win, you lose, maybe you don't make as good a grade on the test. It's a learning op, right? You learn, how can you apply those lessons? So the answer is definitely yes on that.
So, I mean, did you take an extra step in talking with him, or you referred to Sean kind of spelling out what's expected? Was that something that was done differently this time?
No, it would, no, that I would say this, we're a pretty simple culture here, Kevin, where, okay, number one, football is very, very important. Standards very, very high. It's a football building. So you feel that the moment you come in, you better be on your P's and Q's and love football. And then I would say, hey, the we is greater than the me, right? And me's are important, right? Me's are individuals with lives, with families, with aspirations. So there's nothing that's, let's call it, me's are very, very important. But at the end of the day, we're the Los Angeles Rams. We have team goals that are greater than any individual goals, and those get spelled out. And the only thing different from this case, maybe from the Deshaun case, would be Deshaun was coming here in the offseason. There is OTAs, there's a training camp, there is a lot different in that aspect. And you'll say, wait a minute, you're coming here week 10, you're gonna basically arrive on Friday of week 10. Probably fortunate that we're playing a Monday night game and have a bye week that helps integrate the player into it, but it has to be done slowly. But that would be the difference.
And the last thing for me, Cooper Kupp talked yesterday about how a player who comes to the Rams and isn't about the team, isn't about the next guy, sticks out like a sore thumb. That culture, how much has that been intentional on the part of management, you, and I guess how much does the culture shape the players, or as opposed to the players shaping the culture?
Culture's a living organism, right? It's not words or signs, right? Every facility has signage, sayings, and man, boy, there's some, probably every facility has, and those words, those sayings, there's a lot of wisdom when you unpack, usually in a very concise statement. Whether we're living it or not, it's to be determined. But I'll say this, Kevin, going back to when we first hired Sean, there was one thing that was very clear, that football is going to be the main thing, right? And that's what we do here, right? That's the product development part of this organization, is developing quality football. That's the main thing. And I think when players step into it, I think Cooper mentioned, right? You can come here with a personality, you can come here with a brand, and sometimes now in sports, and because of the platforms we were talking about earlier, brands are a little bit bigger, maybe maybe they're more, whatever you get what I'm trying to say. But when you walk into the building, Rams football is very important. And if football is important to you, if you're passionate about the game, if you're passionate about winning football games, if you're passionate about doing all the things right on a daily basis, and in that 3-hour window that Sean talks about to win a game, then you'll be fine here.
And we'll wrap it up with you, Steve.
Okay, Les, can you hear me okay? Am I muted?
No, I hear you, Steve.
Okay, great. Hey, just a couple quick ones. With the history you guys had with some of the conversations about Odell back in 2018, how much of a lead-in did that give you as far as how he might be able to fit into the system right now? And, we talked about the character, how he just might be able to fit into what you guys do here.
You know what, that was probably, I would say, not a lot. I mean, 2018 is a little bit different, because when there was an element of shopping Odell, that was going to be a sign and trade. It was a different phase in his career and things like that. Now, I would say this, Steve, going back to getting to know Odell at LSU, to getting to know him even when he was with the Giants, things like that. All of that entire resume definitely plays into this day. But I do think that was a different phase in probably our life, or our window with the Rams, and in Odell's life. And this is a different one. But along the journey, getting to know people definitely plays into this moment.
And also, Les, I mean, Odell has made no bones about how much time he spends in LA, how much he would like to be here. I know we talked about the recruitment, but did he actually reach out to you first, or did you guys reach out to him?
I think, I mean, I'll let you ask Odell that. I mean, I don't want to get into I would say these conversations, I truly respect the player, that side of it. So in all of this, I know this, we needed help at wide receiver. Odell happened to be a free agent, didn't get claimed, and so it was perfect timing.
Great. Thanks so much, Les.